I read a story. I don't know whether this is true. That there was you read a myth sometime about Atalanta, about a
Yeah.
monster that was killed with the javelin,
Yes.
and that kind of was a bit of an inspiration for you. So, but how did you move from? So you said in 14 years. What happened at the end of those 14 years? Then was that?
Well, no, yeah. I mean, it wasn't just the 14 years. I was constantly being told as I was growing up. Care leavers age now is 18.
Yeah.
And when we talk about care leavers going independent living at 18, that's horrific in a way, because most conventional families' children don't leave home now until they're 26, 30. To get a foot on the ladder, even with the bank of mum and dad to help them, it's virtually impossible for our young care leavers. And as I said to you, the government kind of say, right, at 18, you've got to go independent living. Here's £3,000 and you can have somebody, a point of contact to be talked to only twice a year. I mean, what is that?
Yeah, it's wrong.
They don't have anyone else, like I said, mum and dad's, nans, grands, aunts and uncles. But back in my day, it was 16. So I was constantly being told by the house parents, who obviously revelled in telling me, because I called them out for smacking the kids or doing something they shouldn't have been doing. And I would be told, oh, you'll be going up to the ball schools in London soon. We'll be pleased to get rid of you. And every day I heard the same thing, you'll amount to nothing. Because back then it was all about, in the 60s and 70s, prostitution and marijuana. And it was always like, oh, you'll end up a junkie or a prostitute on the street. And I thought, really? How can that be? Surely not. And I was like thinking, what can I do? And I started from the age of 10, 11, thinking, what can I do? What can I do? Every year I saw the clock ticking, And I remember at the age of 11, I was watching the Olympics, and Mary Peters at the Munich Olympics won the heptathlon. And Mary, it was great, because it made me realise, actually, because that's it. I thought sport was my saviour. I loved sport at school. It kept me out of trouble. Earned my respect from my peers. The teachers stopped throwing the chalk at me in the class lessons. And I suddenly thought, this is something I can be good at. And I was good at it. I was usually in all the teams and the captain of all the teams. I then decided, that I would learn to manage my team, get them together for practices, talk to them and motivate them, and all these kinds of things that, the skills that you get for young kids to do a sport or something they love to do. These skills will stay with you through the rest of your life, right? You can adapt them to most things. Well, when I saw Mary Peters, as I say, I was 11 years old, and I ran upstairs to the bedroom and I put my feet up the wall and I was laying there thinking, now that can be something I can do, and I'll have a big mansion and I'll have big cars, mate. And I was dreaming the dream.
Yeah.
And that gave me hope that there was something I could perhaps think about doing. But the reality of it is, would this 11-year-old kid be able to turn this around and make this, gold dust, in terms of making it success and getting herself out that hole of darkness and know that there was a secure future for that person, for me. And it's the same for any kid, that's all they want. That's all we ever want. Every person wants to be able to have something they can do independently and succeed at doing and know that their future's, secure. But with the sport, obviously, that's where I found the love of the Whitbread family. I can remember Auntie Ray was the mum I always wanted. And I said to Auntie Ray, we got a netball tournament coming up, Auntie. I said, and if we win, I said, we'll have a medal. I said, and I'm going to give you that medal, like being the person I want to be, my mum. So Auntie Ray taught me a good lesson, which even that I took to my Olympic stadium years, when I was competing. She said, you concentrate on what you're doing. She said, you haven't won that yet. She said, and you just go out there and do your best. That's all you can do.
Nice.
And what will be, will be.
Yeah.
And I always remember that, because when I went out in the stadium, when I was competing at the Olympics, I used to think, now don't even look at what medals are out there, just concentrate on what you're doing. Because if someone throws a big performance, you're thinking, oh, I'm not going to get that gold medal, I'm not going to get a bronze medal, I'm not going to get a medal at all. That's the wrong place to be, headset-wise, the idea really is to just focus on the job in hand. And during this netball match, it was quite a tough one because it was a league match for the final. And it was going 11-11, 12-11, 12 all. And I was getting louder and louder at my team, trying to motivate them. So the whistle went and the umpire said, "Young lady, keep that noise down, otherwise you'll be off." So I kind of like, who's that? Like, because most kids in the care system are quite feisty, I suppose. They're used to standing up for themselves because they've only got themselves to stand up for in a way. And so then the match was going 12 all, 13-12, 13 all. And then, and don't get me wrong, I mean, back then, nowadays they'd call us motivators, but back then they called us a pain in the arse, right? Making so much noise. So the whistle went again and it was like, "I've told you once, if I've got to tell you again, you'll be off." Right. And as I turned my back, I started to mutter, and their team captain said, "Fats, don't say it. Don't say anymore. She'll send you off. She's very strict." Oh, okay, I thought. Anyway, we won. Yay. Chances they got a medal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it was like the end of the netball season, the start of the athletic season. And I said to my friend Alma around the corner, who was in the children's home, "Alma," I said, "we both like doing sport. It's the athletic season. Why don't we try and get to the local athletic club and see what we can do?" So we walked about 5 miles to get to our local athletic track. Probably had the bus money, but spent it on silly things like sweets or Woodbine cigarettes. Things that kids used to do, you know.
Yeah.
And then I got to the track gates and Alma saw the sprinters and she loved that, so off she went. And I saw this tall, good-looking blonde fella throwing what looked like a spear. And I thought, "Oh, he's nice, I'll go over there." So I walked over to the track and at the side there was a javelin and I went to pick it up and he said, "You're not allowed to do that." So I kind of looked and the shot put coach behind said, "No, young lady, you'll have to wait in the stand for the javelin coach to come." So I said, "Well, where's this javelin coach?" He said, "Come on," he said, "let's go and wait in the stand." Yeah. So I sat in the stand and I was sort of toe tapping and all of a sudden Jack said, "Here comes the coach now." And this Mini pulled up in the car park. And as this figure started walking across the infield, I went, "Oh, it's that same woman on the netball court." Oh, no, what are the chances?
No. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought, oh, no, like that. So Jack said, when she got over to the stand, "Oh, Mrs. Whitbread," he said, "I've got this young lady." "I know who she is. I know who you are." She said, "You're Fatima." She said, "Well, let me tell you, young lady, any of that cheek you showed on the netball court, there'll be no throwing any javelins here." So I kind of like cut my hands together and I said, "I promise I'll behave." And a few weeks went by. She started saying to me, "You've got a bit of talent. Why don't you ask Mum and Dad to come up?" She said, "And we can talk about getting you some javelin boots and a javelin, get you into a competition program." So I just sort of nodded my head. And as the weeks went by, she said, "Jack," she said, "has Fatima got a hearing problem?" "No, why is that?" "Well, every time I ask her about Mum and Dad, she just nods her head." "Oh," he said, "don't you know, she's from the children's homes." So with that, the following week, Mrs. Whitbread came up. She had a pair of boots and a jam. She said, "I've had a young girl that's retired." She said, "These boots are probably too big for you." She said, "2 sizes." She stuffed them with paper. She said, "But you can have them." So I thought, oh, wow, because kids in the homes rarely got given anything. Yeah. Most things were communal, so you couldn't get attached to anything.
Yeah.
And I said to Alma, "Look, today we're not walking." I said, "I want to get back early," I said, "to show Ingrid, our German student, because in the summer, most of the kids who could go home in care systems, which they do go home for short stays, or, the long stays that don't have anyone to go home to, they usually stay in care," which was a few of us. And so I said to Alma, "Let's get on the bus." Now, this is funny because it wouldn't happen today. And I'm standing at the bus stop with my javelin. And the bus driver, the door's open and he's shaking his head like, "No." So I point my javelin out, "Yes." Then he said, "Go on, get on the back of the bus," he said, "and behave." So when I got back to the children's home, I said, "Ingrid, come out in the garden. Let me show her how I throw this javelin when I'm up the track." So Ingrid, the German students that look after us in the summer, Ingrid came out into the garden. So I took a couple of throws to get it to the end of the garden. It went in the vegetable patch. So I discarded this potato off the end of it and I stepped forward and I said, "Ingrid, now move out the way. I'm going to get it a really big throw this time. Of course I didn't. It went smash through the French windows. So Ingrid's standing there with her head in her hands. And I said to her, don't worry. She said, you'll be in trouble. I said, I'm always in trouble. What's new, you know? Calling out anything for the kids. I said, I can take it. So I said, I'll tell you what, let's stick it together with some sellotape. Oh, don't be silly, they'll still know. I said, yeah, but still try. So we stuck it all with sellotape. No. I got a month's ban, which meant that no after-school activities and no going to see Auntie Ray when Auntie Ray was off duty. I used to pop in and have a cup of tea and a biscuit with her. And so, you know, eventually, after a week or two, a message got through to me from the other team's captain. Mrs. Whitbread thinks you're bunked off with the javelin and the boots and you've sold them and you're not interested. And I thought, oh, I can't have that. So probably 2:00 one morning, I went downstairs, crept into the front room there where there was a French bureau, and I pulled out my ignorance an airmail envelope. And I started writing on it, Dear Mrs. Whitbread, I'm sorry I can't come to the track. Only I smashed the French windows and I've got a month's ban. But one day I want to be the best javelin thrower in the world. So I stuck it together and I put Mrs. Whitbread, St. Chad's School, and I hid it under my arm and posted it in the box on the way to school the next morning. Well, I waited and there was nothing. I thought she couldn't have got it. And then all of a sudden I heard, whilst I was playing in the garden with the kids, I heard the phone ring. So I sort of pressing my ear against the glass window and I heard the house auntie saying, no, she can't come. She's been naughty. She smashed the windows. Uncle won't let her go. Blah, blah, blah. Well, Mrs. Whitbread must have been quite persistent because within a week I was back at the track throwing again. And then she said to me, would you like to come and visit the family, have tea with us one night? And I said, yeah, that would be nice. And of course, yeah, it was good. I enjoyed playing with the two boys, Greg, who was 4, and Kirk, who was 2. And I saw Mr. Whitbread, very nice guy. And I thought, this is nice, you know, family. So then Mrs. Whitbread then said to me, would you like to come in the summer season and stay a few weeks? And I thought, I don't know about that because my responsibility as being a mum to the kids was really important to me, you know, and also meant that I wouldn't see my Auntie Ray. But Auntie Ray said to me, Fats, look, you've always wanted to know what it's like to live with a family. She said, you go and enjoy yourself. Go and have a look, see what it's like. So, of course, I did. And I had 2 weeks with them and I got on well. I mean, like all families, they had ups and downs, which is, you know, a good thing to understand because when you're stuck in children's homes, you tend to glamorize things a lot with what children have in their own homes. So it was good to learn, you know, what family life was about. And toward the end, before I went back to the children's home, Greg, the 4-year-old, said, Mum, he said, do we have to take Fatima back to the shop? So Mrs. Whitbread says, we sort of all laughed. Yeah. And then she drove me back to the children's home. And then on the way back, she said, we've been thinking we want to know whether you would like to come and live with us and be a Whitbread. So I kind of thought, are you for real? And I didn't dare want to believe it because I didn't want to be excited about something that potentially wasn't going to really happen. And equally, I was concerned because that would mean leaving my Auntie Ray and also the children that I look after. So when I got back to the children's home, the house auntie, who famously liked to bully us all, didn't really talk to them very nicely, which she just never spoke to the kids that well, started saying, what are you going to tell Auntie Ray then? Well, I knew Auntie Ray was coming on duty and I can't tell Auntie Ray that I'm leaving. I didn't know what to say, you know. If the floor could have opened, I would have happily been swallowed up. And I could hear Auntie Ray coming through the back door. Oh, no. And when Auntie Ray opened the door, Mrs. Whitbread said, not Mrs. Whitbread, the house auntie said, oh, well, tell Auntie Ray then. Tell Auntie Ray what you're going to do. You're going to be leaving us, aren't you? You're leaving us. So I sort of pushed myself in the corner of the kitchen. And Auntie Ray turned to me, as true as Auntie Ray would. And she said, oh, Fat. She said, come here. And she gave me a big hug. She said, are you going to live with the Whitbreads? She said, I couldn't be happier for you. She said, I can't give you that. She said, but they can, and you'll do really well with them. And that gave me sort of permission to embrace it. And yeah, my life changed forever. And, hence the reason why my ministry today is all about bringing change and rejuvenating the care system to a system that's broken and not serving our kids.
Yeah.
And to helping our young children to improve their life chances. So the book, Fatima's My Bright Shining Star, comes out October the 24th. You can get it at Waterstones. It's going to be in Sainsbury's. You can pre-order it as well. It's a fantastic book to inspire young mums to think about opening their heart and their homes to these kids, fostering. Yeah. It's about children to be understood about what these kids go through, and also for those kids that live in the care system. There's currently nothing out there like it. It's all to help to raise awareness for our children in the care system. You don't make huge money on books unless you're J.K. Rowling, that is. But it's there to, any funds that come in will go to the Children Fatima's UK campaign to help get these kids in projects, to skill them up, and let's hope they can reach and fulfill their full potential.
Thank you so much. That was genuinely a wonderful, moving story. It really was. And I think there's a wonderful underpinning there. Maybe kind of almost epitomizes your life a little bit. That those people who saw some potential with you, saw past the difficult, the mouthy kid, whether it be around the sport or whether it be around that nurturing nature that you obviously had towards the other kids. Those two little bits of just seeing the potential you had as a person that then overruled all the prejudice, all the kind of the stigma, all the stuff that many care leavers and care experienced children have. Epitomizes the successes that then you've had as a result of that. The potential was always there. It just required somebody to actually see it, to kind of allow it and nurture it. Let me ask you a question. Do you ever find the pressures of supporting, teaching, or caring for someone else overwhelming and wish you had access to more support and information? The Able to Care podcast, in connection with Able Training, has created the ablehub.uk, where for less than the price of a coffee a week, you can access exclusive podcast content, resources, events, and over 45 certified online courses, covering topics like self-care, understanding dementia, neurodiversity, first aid, conflict management, financial advice, and so much more, with new content and courses being added each month. We are so confident that you will benefit from the Able Hub that we are offering 14 days access completely free of charge. No contract, cancel anytime. Become part of the ablehub.uk community and gain the support, knowledge, and resources you deserve. Don't struggle alone. Be able. Find the link in the description.